Some people don't struggle with sleep because their body is broken. They struggle because their nervous system never truly feels safe enough to let go, and after years of stress, overthinking, emotional pressure, the brain can quietly become trapped in a state of survival, even at night. If you've been feeling exhausted for a long time, there's a chance your body isn't actually fighting against you. Your mind may simply be trying to protect you in the only way it knows how. So tonight, you don't need to force sleep. You don't need to fix yourself. And you don't need to fight every thought passing through your mind. For the next few moments, you can simply let your body feel supported, while your mind slowly begins to soften on its own. Scientists now understand that healing is not only physical, it's deeply connected to the way the brain experiences stress, safety, and emotional recovery. When the brain stays under stress for too long, the nervous system can remain slightly alert in the background, even during sleep. And this may explain why so many exhausted people lie in bed feeling tired, while their mind still refuses to fully let go. You may have noticed this yourself. Your body feels heavy, but your thoughts continue moving. Sometimes the brain becomes so used to tension that calmness itself begins to feel unfamiliar. But the human brain is far more adaptable than scientists once believed. Research on neuroplasticity suggests that repeated emotional experiences can slowly reshape the nervous system over time. This means the brain can learn stress, but it can also slowly learn safety again. And that process often begins with very small moments. A slower breath, a quieter room, a gentle voice, a feeling that you no longer need to stay on guard every second. Researchers have also spent years studying something called the placebo effect, and what they discovered was fascinating. In some studies, people experienced measurable improvements in pain, stress, and emotional well-being simply because the brain believed support and healing were possible. This doesn't mean healing is imaginary. It means the brain is constantly influencing the body through hormones, neurotransmitters, and the nervous system itself. Your thoughts affect tension levels, your emotions affect stress chemistry, and feelings of safety can influence how deeply the body is able to rest. Maybe that's something many tired people rarely hear anymore, that the body often responds differently when it no longer feels alone. So tonight, though, you don't have to solve your entire life before sleep arrives. You don't need perfect peace. You don't need a perfect mind. And you don't need to force healing to happen all at once. Sometimes healing begins much more quietly than people expect. A softer breath, a calmer nervous system, a moment where the body finally realizes it's safe enough to rest. Long periods of stress can affect the brain more deeply than many people realize. Researchers have found that chronic stress may impact a part of the brain called the hippocampus, an area closely connected to memory, emotional balance, and nervous system recovery. When stress hormones remain elevated for too long, the brain can begin adapting to survival instead of rest. And over time, this may leave people feeling emotionally exhausted, mentally foggy, or unable to fully relax even in safe environments. But there is something hopeful about this. The brain is not as fixed as scientists once believed. Studies now suggest that the nervous system may slowly begin recovering when stress levels decrease and the body experiences more consistent feelings of safety. Simple things like rest, quiet routines, supportive relationships, mindfulness, and emotional calmness may help the brain begin repairing itself over time. Researchers have even observed signs of neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells, in certain regions associated with emotional regulation and memory. This means your brain may be far more resilient than you were ever taught to believe. You are not permanently damaged by everything you've been through. Sometimes the nervous system is simply overwhelmed, exhausted, and waiting for a chance to feel safe again. And the connection between emotional stress and physical health goes even deeper. Scientists study something called psychoneuroimmunology, the relationship between the brain, emotions, the nervous system, and the immune system. What researchers continue discovering is that chronic anxiety, hopelessness, emotional pressure, and prolonged stress may weaken the body's ability to recover efficiently. Meanwhile, feelings of emotional safety, connection, gratitude, and calmness appear to support healthier immune responses inside the body. One reason for this may involve the vagus nerve, a communication pathway between the brain and major organs throughout the body. When the nervous system begins shifting out of survival mode, the brain can send signals associated with repair, restoration, and recovery. And this may help explain why emotional healing and physical healing are often more connected than people realize. Meditation and mindfulness practices have also attracted growing attention from neuroscientists in recent years. In several studies, participants who practiced mindfulness consistently for weeks reported improvements in sleep quality, stress levels, emotional regulation, and overall well-being. Some brain imaging studies even observed changes in regions connected to fear, emotional processing, and stress response. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, appeared less reactive in certain participants after consistent calming practices. This doesn't mean meditation magically removes stress, but it may help train the nervous system to respond differently to it. Sometimes healing begins not by forcing the mind to become silent, but by learning how to observe thoughts without feeling trapped inside them. And over time, the brain may slowly become more flexible, more resilient, and less reactive to fear. The words people hear during difficult moments can also deeply affect the nervous system. Research suggests that fear-based language may increase stress responses inside the body. When people constantly hear phrases that create hopelessness or fear, the brain may begin preparing for danger instead of recovery. but supportive language can create a very different emotional response. Simple reminders like, "Many people improve with time," or "Your body still has the ability to recover," may help reduce emotional stress and restore a greater sense of hope, because the mind is always listening. And the stories we repeatedly hear about ourselves can quietly shape the way the nervous system responds to life. Even the gut and the brain remain in constant communication through something scientists call the gut-brain axis. The body is deeply connected in ways people are still learning to fully understand, which is why healing rarely comes from only one place. Sometimes recovery begins with sleep, sometimes with emotional safety, sometimes with rest, and sometimes with finally feeling supported after carrying stress alone for far too long. Scientists are also discovering that the connection between the brain and the body may be far more intimate than people once imagined. Inside the digestive system live trillions of microorganisms, often referred to as the gut microbiome. And these tiny organisms appear to communicate constantly with the brain through what researchers call the gut-brain axis. Some of these microbes may influence the production of neurotransmitters connected to mood, emotional balance, and sleep, including serotonin, a chemical often associated with feelings of calm and well-being, which means emotional stress may not only affect the mind, it can also influence digestion, inflammation, energy levels, and even the quality of sleep itself. This may help explain why prolonged stress often feels physical. Tightness in the chest, a heavy stomach, exhaustion that sleep alone doesn't fully fix. The body and mind are not separate systems, they are constantly speaking to one another. And when the nervous system spends too long in survival mode, the entire body may begin carrying that burden quietly in the background. But healing may also work in the same connected way. Moments of calmness, emotional safety, supportive human connection, deeper rest, and reduced stress may gradually send different signals throughout the body. Signals associated with restoration instead of protection, and over time, small moments of safety may begin teaching the nervous system that it no longer has to stay on high alert every second of the day. This is one reason many people notice emotional relief after simple routines that seem almost too small to matter. A quiet evening walk, soft music before bed, a slower breath. Turning off overstimulating noise for a little while. These moments may appear ordinary, but to an exhausted nervous system they can feel deeply restorative. And perhaps healing is not always something dramatic. Sometimes it begins when the body finally experiences enough calmness to stop preparing for danger. When that happens, sleep often becomes less of a battle. The mind softens, the breath slows naturally, and the body begins shifting away from survival and closer toward recovery. Little by little, night after night, not perfectly, but gently. Some neuroscientists believe the brain becomes stronger not only through effort, but also through moments of calm awareness. In several mindfulness studies, participants who practiced quiet observation techniques over time often reported feeling less anxious, sleeping more deeply, and becoming emotionally steadier during stressful situations. Brain imaging research has even suggested that consistent calming practices may influence regions connected to fear, emotional regulation, and stress response. One of these regions is called the amygdala, sometimes described as the brain's internal alarm system. When the nervous system remains overwhelmed for too long, this alarm system can become overly sensitive. Even small worries may begin feeling emotionally exhausting, but moments of stillness may slowly teach the brain that not every thought requires danger, urgency, or protection. And perhaps that's why practices like mindfulness, deep breathing, gentle reflection, or quiet nighttime routines can feel surprisingly restorative over time. Not because they instantly erase stress, but because they may help the nervous system respond to stress differently. Sometimes healing begins the moment the brain realizes it no longer has to stay in survival mode all the time. And the language people hear during difficult moments may influence this process more than many realize. Research has shown that fear-based expectations can sometimes intensify emotional stress and physical discomfort. When people repeatedly hear phrases filled with hopelessness or fear, the nervous system may begin preparing for suffering before it even arrives. But supportive words can create a very different emotional response inside the body. Simple reminders like, "Many people improve with time," or "Your body is still capable of healing," may help reduce emotional tension and create a greater sense of safety. Because the brain is constantly listening for signals about whether the world feels threatening or manageable. And over time, those signals may shape stress hormone activity, sleep quality, emotional resilience, and even immune response. Scientists are also continuing to explore the relationship between gut health and emotional well-being. Inside the digestive system live trillions of microorganisms that communicate with the brain through what researchers call the gut-brain axis. Some of these microbes appear connected to the production of neurotransmitters related to mood, calmness, motivation, and sleep, including serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, which may help explain why emotional stress often affects both the mind and the body at the same time. When chronic stress disrupts the body for long periods, people may notice digestive discomfort, emotional instability, fatigue, anxious thoughts, or poor sleep becoming more common. The body is deeply interconnected, and healing may work the same way. Small improvements in rest, nutrition, emotional calmness, stress reduction, and sleep habits may gradually support the nervous system from multiple directions at once. This is why recovery often happens slowly, gently, and layer by layer, not through pressure, but through consistency, safety, and rest. And perhaps that's one reason sleep remains so important. Because during deep rest, the brain and body finally have an opportunity to slow down, recover, and begin restoring balance again. Sleep may be one of the most important forms of healing the human body experiences each day. While you rest, the brain does not simply shut down. In many ways, it becomes incredibly active behind the scenes. Researchers have discovered that during deep stages of sleep, the brain activates a cleansing process that helps remove waste products that build up throughout the day. Some scientists compare this process to a nighttime cleaning system for the brain, and without enough deep rest over long periods of time, mental exhaustion, emotional instability, and cognitive fog may slowly become more noticeable. But sleep appears to do more than support physical restoration. It may also help the brain process emotional experiences, difficult memories, stress, emotional tension, and overwhelming experiences may become easier to manage after healthy sleep. Many people notice this naturally. Problems that feel unbearable late at night often feel more manageable after proper rest, not because life suddenly changes, but because the brain has had time to regulate emotional intensity more effectively. This may be one reason chronic sleep deprivation is so closely connected to anxiety, irritability, emotional overwhelm, and burnout. Your sleeping brain is constantly working to restore balance, and the relationship between emotional stress and physical pain may also be far more connected than most people realize. Pain is not only a physical signal. The brain also interprets pain through emotion, fear, expectation, and stress levels. This is why emotional tension can sometimes make discomfort feel heavier, louder, and more consuming, and why moments of safety, calmness, connection, or distraction may occasionally soften the intensity of physical pain. The mind does not invent pain from nothing, but it may influence how strongly the nervous system experiences it. And perhaps this helps explain why emotional support can feel deeply healing during difficult periods of life. Humans were never designed to carry overwhelming stress completely alone. Research consistently shows that supportive relationships may help regulate stress hormones, support immune function, and improve emotional resilience. Feeling emotionally connected to others can send powerful safety signals through the nervous system. And when the body no longer feels isolated, it may slowly begin shifting away from chronic survival mode. Sometimes healing begins with medicine, sometimes with sleep, sometimes with emotional support, and sometimes with simply being reminded that you do not have to carry everything alone every single day, because the nervous system often softens in the presence of safety, connection, and rest, little by little, night after night, one gentle moment at a time. Human connection may affect the body more deeply than many people realize. Supportive relationships are not only emotional comfort, they may also influence stress hormones, immune function, sleep quality, and the nervous system itself. Researchers have found that people with strong emotional support often recover more effectively from periods of stress, illness, emotional burnout, and even physical pain. And perhaps this makes sense. The human nervous system was never designed to endure overwhelming stress completely alone. Feelings of isolation can quietly keep the body in a state of emotional vigilance. But moments of connection, understanding, kindness, or reassurance may help the nervous system feel safer again. And when the body feels safer, healing processes may become easier to support. Scientists have also studied how practices like gratitude may influence emotional well-being over time. Simple habits such as reflecting on supportive moments, appreciating small comforts, or noticing what still feels meaningful in life may gradually shift attention away from constant threat scanning. This does not mean pretending life is perfect, and it does not mean ignoring pain. It simply means the brain may slowly learn that danger is not the only thing worth noticing. Over time, this shift in attention may support emotional balance, stress recovery, and even better sleep quality. Some studies have linked gratitude practices with improvements in mood, emotional resilience, and feelings of calmness, not because gratitude magically removes hardship, but because the nervous system may become less consumed by fear and hypervigilance. Trauma can also affect the brain in powerful ways. After long periods of emotional pain or overwhelming stress, the nervous system may become highly sensitive to perceived danger. The brain can begin reacting as though protection is constantly necessary. Even in safe environments, this may leave people feeling emotionally tense, restless, easily startled, or unable to fully relax. But modern trauma therapies continue exploring ways to help the brain relearn safety. Researchers studying approaches such as EMDR, neurofeedback, and trauma-focused therapy have observed encouraging signs that the brain may remain capable of change throughout life. Over time, people sometimes become better able to regulate emotions, tolerate stress, and experience moments of calmness again. Not because the past disappears, but because the nervous system slowly learns that survival is no longer the only mode available. And perhaps this is one of the most hopeful things neuroscience continues to reveal. The brain is not static. The nervous system can adapt, and healing may still remain possible. Even after very difficult experiences, exercise may support this process as well, not only by strengthening the body, but by helping regulate stress chemistry, improve sleep quality, and release tension that the nervous system may have carried for far too long. Sometimes recovery does not arrive all at once. Sometimes it begins quietly, through rest, through support, through movement, through sleep, and through small moments where the body finally starts feeling safe again. Movement may influence the brain far more deeply than many people realize. Exercise does not only strengthen muscles or improve physical endurance, it may also support emotional healing, stress recovery, and nervous system regulation. Researchers have found that physical activity can stimulate the release of compounds that help the brain grow stronger and more adaptable over time. One of these compounds is called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, sometimes described as a kind of support system for healthy brain function. BDNF appears to help strengthen neural connections and support the growth of new brain cells. And this may be one reason regular movement is often linked to improved mood, better sleep, clearer thinking, and greater emotional resilience. Even gentle forms of movement can make a difference. A short evening walk, light stretching before bed, slow movement paired with deep breathing. These small actions may help release tension the nervous system has been carrying quietly throughout the day. Research also suggests that regular movement may help reduce inflammation, regulate stress hormones, and improve the body's ability to recover from emotional strain. Not perfectly, not instantly, but gradually. And perhaps this matters because the nervous system was never designed to remain in a constant state of stress. The human body has two major nervous system responses. One prepares you for danger, often called the fight or flight response. The other supports rest, restoration, digestion, and healing. But chronic stress can keep the body stuck in survival mode for far too long. The heart may beat faster, breathing may become shallow, muscles remain tense, and the brain continues scanning for problems even during moments of rest. Over time, this constant stress load may quietly exhaust both the body and the mind. But the nervous system can also receive signals of safety. Slow breathing, calming routines, quiet environments, emotional reassurance, and mindful rest may help activate the body's restorative systems again. Even something as simple as a longer exhale can send calming signals through the vagus nerve, helping the body shift away from alertness and toward recovery. And sometimes the nervous system simply needs repeated reminders that the emergency has passed. Hope may also play a deeper role in healing than many people expect. Not blind optimism, not pretending everything is perfect, but a quiet belief that improvement may still be possible. Research suggests that hopeful thinking may help people cope more effectively with stress, illness, emotional pain, and uncertainty. Because when the brain begins seeing possibility, it may also begin searching for pathways toward recovery. Hopelessness often narrows attention toward fear and limitation. But realistic hope may gently reopen the mind toward healing, support, and future change. And perhaps this is one reason emotional encouragement can feel surprisingly powerful during difficult seasons of life. The nervous system is always listening, always adapting, always responding to signals of danger or safety. which means healing may not only depend on what happens to the body, but also on the emotional environment surrounding it every single day. Chronic stress may affect the body in ways that are quieter, but deeper than many people realize. When the nervous system remains under pressure for long periods of time, the body may continue releasing inflammatory chemicals associated with stress responses. In short moments, this response can be protective, but when emotional stress becomes constant, the body may struggle to fully return to a state of rest and recovery. Researchers now believe that prolonged psychological stress may contribute to ongoing inflammation inside the body. And over time, this may affect energy levels, sleep quality, emotional resilience, immune function, and overall well-being. This is one reason practices that reduce emotional stress can sometimes have measurable physical effects as well. Rest, supportive relationships, meditation, mindful breathing, gentle movement, feeling emotionally safe. These experiences may help the nervous system shift away from chronic alertness and toward restoration. The brain also contains something researchers call the default mode network. This network becomes active during moments of self-reflection, worrying, remembering, or mentally replaying life experiences. And for many people struggling with anxiety or chronic stress, this mental network may become overactive. The mind continues looping through fears, regrets, future worries, and emotional tension, even while lying in bed at night. But mindfulness practices appear to help quiet some of this mental noise over time. Not by forcing the mind to become empty, but by gently teaching attention to return to the present moment again and again. And perhaps this matters because the brain is highly responsive to repeated experiences. The more often the nervous system experiences calmness, stillness, and safety, the more familiar those states may slowly begin to feel. Researchers have also studied the role of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. This chemical is often released during positive social connection, emotional closeness, physical affection, and feelings of trust. And its effects on the nervous system may be surprisingly powerful. Studies suggest oxytocin may help reduce stress responses, calm fear-related brain activity, and support emotional regulation, which may help explain why a reassuring touch, a safe relationship, or even sitting beside someone you trust can sometimes calm the body almost immediately. Not because emotional connection is imaginary, but because the nervous system responds biologically to feelings of safety and belonging. Human beings are deeply relational creatures, and sometimes the body heals more easily when it no longer feels emotionally alone. Perhaps this is why comfort can feel so physically real. A calm voice, a warm hug, a peaceful conversation, a quiet presence beside you at the end of a difficult day. These moments may seem small, but to an exhausted nervous system, They can feel like relief, and sometimes healing begins there. The human brain responds not only to reality, but also to imagination, memory, and expectation. Researchers have found that when people vividly imagine experiences, many of the same neural pathways involved in real experiences may become active as well. This is one reason visualization practices have been used for decades in sports psychology, stress recovery, and emotional regulation. When the mind repeatedly imagines calmness, safety, healing, or positive outcomes, the nervous system may begin responding to those mental experiences in subtle but meaningful ways. Not as a replacement for medical care, but as another way the brain practices moving away from fear and toward regulation. And perhaps this helps explain why peaceful imagery before sleep can sometimes feel deeply calming. A quiet beach, gentle rain outside the window, a safe room at night. The feeling of finally being able to exhale, even imagined safety, may influence stress responses inside the body. Because the nervous system often reacts to emotional meaning more than perfect logic. Laughter may influence the body in a similar way. Researchers have found that laughter can help lower stress hormones while increasing chemicals associated with pleasure, relaxation, and emotional relief. Even brief moments of humor may help interrupt cycles of fear, tension, and emotional heaviness. The body softens, breathing changes, muscles relax, and the nervous system briefly shifts away from defense. Sometimes people feel guilty for laughing during difficult periods of life, but moments of lightness are not weakness. They may actually help the body recover from prolonged emotional strain. The nervous system was never designed to remain tense every moment of every day, and sometimes healing begins the moment the body remembers what relief feels like again. Forgiveness may also affect emotional and physical well-being more deeply than many people expect. Holding on to unresolved anger, resentment, or emotional pain can sometimes keep the nervous system in a prolonged state of stress. This does not mean harmful behavior should be excused, and it does not mean painful experiences should be ignored. But in some cases, releasing the emotional burden of constant resentment may reduce the stress the body continues carrying over time. Not for the benefit of the person who caused harm, but for your own peace, for your own nervous system, for your own healing. The environments people spend time in may also influence emotional recovery. Harsh lighting, constant noise, clutter, and overstimulating spaces may quietly keep the brain feeling alert, while softer environments often send very different signals to the nervous system. Warm lighting, natural colors, fresh air, gentle music, quiet evenings, a peaceful bedroom. These small environmental details may help the body feel calmer without you even consciously realizing it. Because the brain is constantly scanning the environment for signs of danger or safety, and over time, creating calmer surroundings may help support deeper rest, emotional regulation, and nervous system recovery. Sometimes healing is not only about changing thoughts. Sometimes it's also about changing the environments your body experiences every single day. The spaces surrounding you may influence your nervous system more than you consciously realize. Your brain is constantly observing the environment for signals of danger, tension, comfort, or safety. Even subtle details may affect how deeply the body is able to relax. Harsh lighting, loud noise, constant stimulation, cluttered spaces, cold environments. These things may quietly keep the nervous system more alert than necessary, while softer environments often send very different signals to the brain. Warm light in the evening, gentle music playing quietly in the background, natural colors, fresh air, a peaceful bedroom at night. These small details may help the body feel calmer without you even noticing why. Because the nervous system is always responding to the atmosphere around it. Researchers have also found that music may influence the brain in surprisingly powerful ways. Music can activate regions connected to emotion, memory, relaxation, and even physical pain perception. And listening to calming music may help the brain release chemicals associated with comfort, pleasure, and emotional regulation. This may help explain why certain songs immediately change how the body feels. A peaceful melody can slow breathing, reduce emotional tension, and soften anxious thoughts after a difficult day. In some healthcare settings, calming music has even been used to help reduce stress and discomfort before medical procedures. Not because music magically removes pain, but because the nervous system often responds deeply to rhythm, familiarity, and emotional comfort. Sometimes music reaches emotional places that words cannot. The stories people repeatedly tell themselves may also influence emotional recovery. Many people living with chronic stress or poor sleep quietly repeat painful beliefs inside their minds. I'll never feel normal again. I'm too exhausted to recover. Something is wrong with me. Over time, these thoughts may shape how the nervous system interprets everyday experiences. Not because thoughts create reality perfectly, but because the brain responds differently to hopelessness than it does to possibility. This is one reason therapeutic approaches often help people gently challenge harsh internal narratives. Not by pretending suffering is unreal, but by creating more flexibility in the way the mind interprets pain, stress, and recovery. Perhaps healing sometimes begins when people stop seeing themselves as permanently broken and start seeing themselves as human beings carrying stress that the nervous system has not fully learned to release yet. So tonight, as you breathe slowly and allow your body to rest, you do not need to solve everything at once. You do not need perfect peace. And you do not need to force your mind into silence. For now, simply notice your breath. Notice the surface beneath you supporting your body. Notice the quiet rhythm of your heartbeat, the gentle rise and fall of your breathing, and the countless systems inside you continuing to work softly in the background. Even now, Your body is still trying to care for you. And perhaps that quiet effort deserves compassion too. Your body is far more intelligent than most people were ever taught to believe. Even now, while you rest quietly, countless systems inside you continue working in silence. Your heart keeps beating. Your lungs continue breathing. Your brain keeps communicating through billions of neural connections, all without conscious effort. Researchers estimate that the human brain contains tens of billions of neurons, each constantly forming and strengthening connections based on experience, emotion, attention, and repetition. Which means the brain is not static. It is always adapting, always learning, and over time, the thoughts and emotional patterns repeated most often may gradually become easier for the brain to access automatically. This may help explain why chronic fear, stress, or self-criticism can eventually begin feeling almost automatic. The nervous system becomes familiar with tension, but the opposite may also be true. Repeated experiences of calmness, emotional safety, encouragement, self-compassion, and supportive routines may slowly help build new emotional patterns as well. This is one reason therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy often focus on gently changing repetitive thought patterns over time. Not through force, but through repetition, awareness, and emotional flexibility. Because thoughts may not simply pass through the mind, they may also shape the pathways through which future emotions are experienced. And one of the most powerful tools for influencing the nervous system is something you carry with you every moment of your life: your breath. Breathing is deeply connected to the body's stress and recovery systems. When breathing becomes shallow and fast, the nervous system often interprets this as stress or danger. But slower breathing may send a very different signal, especially long, gentle exhales. Research suggests that slower breathing patterns may help activate calming pathways associated with rest, digestion, emotional regulation, and recovery. And perhaps this is why many people naturally sigh, exhale deeply, or breathe more slowly the moment they finally begin feeling safe. The body softens first, then the mind often follows. You do not need perfect breathing. You do not need to control every thought. Sometimes simply slowing down for a few moments is enough to remind the nervous system that danger is not happening right now. Chronic pain may also become deeply connected to nervous system patterns over time. In some cases, the body can become highly sensitive after prolonged stress, injury, fear, or emotional exhaustion. The nervous system begins reacting more strongly to normal sensations. Not because the pain is imaginary, but because the brain and body have spent too long preparing for danger. And yet the brain also retains the ability to adapt. Researchers studying neuroplasticity continue exploring how gradual movement, emotional regulation, mindfulness, and gentle exposure to safe experiences may help calm an overprotective nervous system over time. which means healing is not always about forcing the body to fight harder. Sometimes it begins by teaching the nervous system that it no longer needs to stay in survival mode every second of the day. And perhaps your body has been trying to protect you all along, even through exhaustion, even through sleepless nights, even through stress you could not always explain. So tonight, you do not need to be perfect to deserve rest. Your nervous system may simply need time, safety, and gentleness to remember how to relax again. The human body is constantly changing, quietly rebuilding itself in ways most people never stop to notice. Your skin renews itself, cells repair damage, tissues regenerate, even your bones are continuously renewing over time. The version of you that exists today is not physically identical to the version of you from months ago. And perhaps there is something deeply hopeful about that. Because healing may not always mean returning to who you were before stress, exhaustion, or emotional pain entered your life. Sometimes healing means allowing the body and nervous system to slowly become something new, something softer, something steadier, something less burdened by survival. Even now, while you rest quietly, millions of processes inside your body continue working to restore balance. Not perfectly, but continuously. The human body is not static. It is always adapting, always repairing, always responding to the conditions surrounding it. Researchers have also become increasingly interested in a brain region called the insula. This area helps process internal sensations from the body. Things like tension, fatigue, discomfort, temperature, breathing, and emotional states. In many ways, it helps create awareness of what is happening inside you. And for people living under chronic stress, those quiet internal signals are often ignored for far too long. The body whispers before it screams: fatigue, tension, restlessness, shallow breathing, difficulty relaxing. These are not signs of failure. They may simply be signals from a nervous system asking for rest, safety, and recovery. Mindfulness practices may help strengthen this awareness over time. Not by obsessing over symptoms, but by gently learning how to notice the body's needs before exhaustion becomes overwhelming. Sometimes healing begins with listening more carefully to yourself, to your breathing, to your energy, to the tension you carry without realizing it. Sunlight may also play a larger role in emotional and physical well-being than many people realize. Morning light helps regulate the body's circadian rhythm, the internal clock connected to sleep, energy, hormones, and mood. When this rhythm becomes disrupted through chronic stress, poor sleep, or constant overstimulation, the nervous system may struggle to fully recover, but small routines can help gently support balance again. Opening the curtains in the morning, stepping outside for fresh air, allowing natural light to reach your eyes early in the day. These simple habits may help signal to the brain that it is safe to wake and later, safe to rest again. The body responds constantly to rhythm, to light and darkness, to tension and release, to stress and safety. And perhaps healing often begins not through dramatic transformation, but through small moments repeated consistently with care. A deeper breath, a quieter evening, a slower morning, a little more rest than yesterday. And over time, the nervous system may slowly begin remembering what balance feels like again. The human body evolved under the rhythm of natural light. For thousands of years, sunrise and sunset quietly guided sleep, energy, hormones, mood, and the nervous system itself. And even now, your brain continues responding deeply to light in ways most people rarely think about. Morning sunlight helps regulate the body's circadian rhythm, the internal clock connected to alertness during the day and deeper rest at night. Natural light exposure may also influence brain chemicals connected to mood, emotional balance, and overall well-being, which may help explain why people often feel emotionally heavier during long periods without enough sunlight, fresh air, or outdoor connection. The nervous system responds to rhythm, to light and darkness, to movement and stillness, to stimulation and rest. And sometimes modern life quietly disconnects people from those natural rhythms. Late-night screens, artificial lighting, constant overstimulation, irregular sleep schedules, mental exhaustion that never fully turns off. Over time, the body may struggle to remember when it is truly safe to rest, but gentle routines can help support balance again. Morning sunlight, quiet evenings, consistent sleep rhythms, less stimulation before bed, moments of calm throughout the day. These small patterns may seem simple, but the nervous system often heals through repetition, not intensity. Researchers have also explored something deeply fascinating about the psychology of aging. The beliefs people hold about aging may influence how they experience it. Studies have found that individuals with more positive attitudes toward aging often maintain better emotional resilience, stronger social engagement, healthier habits, and sometimes even longer life expectancy. Not because aging becomes effortless, but because hopelessness itself can quietly affect behavior, stress levels, motivation, and emotional well-being over time. The stories people believe about themselves matter, especially the ones repeated for years. And perhaps this is why self-compassion becomes so important during difficult seasons of life. Many people speak to themselves more harshly than they would ever speak to someone they love, especially during illness, exhaustion, stress, or emotional pain. But constant self-criticism may keep the nervous system feeling emotionally threatened, while gentleness may create a very different internal environment. Research on self-compassion suggests that treating yourself with understanding instead of harsh judgment may support emotional resilience, reduce stress, and improve psychological recovery over time. Not through denial, not through pretending life is easy, but through recognizing that suffering does not make you weak, broken, or undeserving of care. And perhaps healing sometimes begins with speaking to yourself more kindly than you did yesterday. The gut and brain also remain deeply connected through the nervous system. Researchers continue studying how gut health may influence mood, stress regulation, energy, and emotional balance through what is often called the gut-brain axis. When the body experiences prolonged stress, poor sleep, or constant emotional overload, that internal balance may become disrupted. And because the body functions as an interconnected system, mental exhaustion and physical symptoms often influence one another, which is why healing rarely comes from only one place. Sometimes recovery begins through better sleep, sometimes through emotional support, sometimes through nutrition, movement, sunlight, or rest, and sometimes through learning how to stop treating yourself like an enemy during difficult moments. Because your body may not be fighting against you. It may simply be asking for care in ways you were never taught to notice before. The connection between the gut and the brain may be far more important than people once believed. Researchers continue discovering that emotional stress can influence digestion, and digestive health may also influence emotional well-being. The relationship appears deeply connected in both directions. When the body experiences chronic stress for long periods of time, the digestive system often feels it too. Changes in appetite, stomach discomfort, tension in the abdomen, digestive irregularities, fatigue after eating. These experiences are not just in your head. The nervous system and digestive system communicate constantly through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. And because the body functions as one interconnected system, mental exhaustion and physical symptoms often influence one another quietly in the background. Researchers are now exploring how healthy gut bacteria may support mood, emotional balance, and stress resilience in some people. Though results vary from person to person, this growing field of research continues reinforcing something important. Healing rarely happens through only one pathway. Sleep matters. Stress matters, nutrition matters, emotional safety matters. Connection matters. The body responds to all of it together. Loneliness may also affect the nervous system more deeply than many realize. Brain imaging studies suggest that social rejection and emotional isolation can activate some of the same brain regions involved in physical pain. Perhaps this helps explain why loneliness can feel so heavy inside the body. Human beings evolved to survive through connection, and when people feel emotionally disconnected for too long, the nervous system may begin interpreting the world as less safe. But meaningful connection does not always require large numbers of relationships. Sometimes one safe person matters more than a crowded room. Feeling understood, feeling accepted, feeling emotionally seen. These experiences may calm the nervous system in ways that are profoundly healing. Even subtle expressions on the human face appear connected to emotional regulation. Researchers studying facial feedback suggest that facial expressions may slightly influence emotional state through feedback loops between the brain and body. Not because people should force fake happiness, and not because sadness is wrong, but because the nervous system constantly responds to signals from both inside and outside the body, sometimes softening tension in the jaw, relaxing the forehead, or allowing the face to rest gently, may help create a small sense of ease internally as well. The brain's fear systems may also gradually calm through repeated experiences of safety. After prolonged stress or emotional pain, the nervous system can become hyper-alert, always scanning for danger, always preparing for something to go wrong. But healing approaches focused on safety, emotional regulation, gradual exposure, and supportive experiences may help retrain those patterns over time. Not instantly, not perfectly, but gently, because the nervous system is adaptable. It learns through repetition, and perhaps this means the body can slowly relearn safety too. Some people also explore practices like cold exposure to help build resilience and regulate stress responses. Cold water exposure may temporarily activate alertness systems inside the body, and over time, some individuals report feeling more emotionally resilient afterward, but the nervous system responds differently for everyone, which is why healing is rarely about forcing the body into extremes. More often, it begins through listening carefully to what helps your own body feel safe, balanced, and supported. Some people use practices like cold showers or brief cold exposure as a way to train resilience within the nervous system. When the body encounters cold temperatures, the brain initially interprets it as a stress response. Alertness increases, breathing changes, heart rate rises, but as the body gradually adapts, the nervous system may begin learning how to move from activation back into recovery more efficiently. And for some people, this process creates a stronger sense of emotional resilience over time. Not because discomfort becomes pleasant, but because the nervous system practices moving through stress without remaining trapped inside it. Of course, approaches like cold exposure are not necessary for healing, and they are not appropriate for everyone. The nervous system responds differently from person to person, which is why recovery often works best through gentleness, consistency, and self-awareness rather than extremes. The body already carries powerful systems for balance and restoration. One of the most important is your circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that helps regulate sleep, hormones, energy, immune activity, and emotional stability. Your body evolved around the rhythm of daylight and darkness. Morning light signals wakefulness. Evening darkness signals rest. But modern life often interrupts those ancient rhythms. Late night scrolling, bright screens before bed, irregular sleep schedules. mental overstimulation late into the night. Over time, the nervous system may become confused about when it is truly safe to relax. Research suggests that consistent sleep and wake times may help strengthen circadian balance and improve sleep quality, mood, focus, and overall recovery. Even small routines matter: morning sunlight, dimmer lighting at night, reducing stimulation before bed, allowing the mind to slow gradually instead of abruptly. These quiet habits may gently help the body relearn rhythm again. And perhaps by now, you're beginning to notice something important. None of these ideas truly stand alone. Sleep affects mood, stress affects digestion, thoughts affect tension, connection affects safety, breathing affects the nervous system. The mind and body are not separate systems competing against one another. They are constantly communicating through hormones, neural pathways, emotions, sensations, and repeated experiences. Every emotional state creates physical effects, and every physical state can influence the mind in return. Perhaps healing begins in awareness, because awareness creates the possibility of change. The possibility to pause, to breathe differently, to soften tension, to choose gentleness instead of constant pressure, to believe recovery may still be possible. And if you are still awake, still listening quietly in this moment, that's okay too. You do not need to force sleep. You do not need to rush healing. For now, simply notice the weight of your body resting beneath you. Notice the quiet support of the bed. Notice your breathing slowing little by little. And allow yourself to rest here for a while. Nothing to solve, nothing to fix, just this moment, and the quiet reminder that your body may still know how to heal more than you realize. Human beings are deeply responsive to touch, comfort, and physical reassurance. From the very beginning of life, the nervous system learns safety through connection. Researchers have observed that gentle, supportive touch may help regulate stress responses, emotional states, and even physical recovery in certain situations. And perhaps this is not surprising. The body is constantly gathering information about whether the world feels safe or threatening. A calm hand on your shoulder, a warm embrace, gentle pressure, a soothing touch after a difficult day. These experiences may send quiet signals of safety through the nervous system. Not because touch magically heals everything, but because the body often softens when it no longer feels alone. This may help explain why practices like massage, gentle stretching, self-soothing routines, or other forms of calming physical care can feel deeply restorative for some people. Your skin is not simply a barrier between you and the world. It is one of the body's largest sensory systems, constantly communicating with the brain through sensation, temperature, pressure, and contact. And sometimes the nervous system responds powerfully to care that feels gentle, grounded, and safe. Sleep also remains one of the body's most important periods for restoration and repair. During darkness, The brain increases production of melatonin, a hormone closely connected to the body's sleep cycle and nighttime recovery processes. While you sleep, countless repair systems quietly become more active. Cells restore themselves. The brain processes information. Stress systems slow down. The body shifts into deeper restoration. But modern environments often interfere with this process. Bright lights late at night, constant screen exposure, mental stimulation before bed, irregular sleep schedules. These habits may quietly disrupt the body's natural rhythm and reduce the nervous system's ability to fully settle into deep rest. Which is why creating a calmer nighttime environment can matter more than many people realize. Dimmer lighting, less screen exposure before bed, gentle nighttime routines, a quieter evening atmosphere. These simple choices may help support the body's natural transition into recovery mode. Nature may also influence emotional and physical well-being in surprisingly calming ways. Researchers studying time spent in natural environments have found that quiet exposure to forests, parks, trees, fresh air, and natural surroundings may help reduce stress markers in the body. Many people notice this instinctively. The nervous system often feels different in nature. Breathing slows, mental noise softens. The body feels less pressured to remain constantly alert. Perhaps natural environments remind the nervous system of something ancient. Stillness, rhythm, space, safety. And maybe this is one reason healing sometimes feels easier in quiet places where the mind no longer has to defend itself so intensely. Not every form of healing needs to be dramatic. Sometimes it begins with softer light, a slower evening, a calm environment, a deep breath, a quiet walk beneath the trees, and the feeling that, for a moment, your nervous system is finally allowed to rest. Healing does not always require dramatic change. Sometimes the nervous system responds to very small moments of calm more than people expect. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need to escape your entire life. Even sitting quietly beneath trees, resting in a peaceful garden, or stepping outside for fresh air for a few minutes may help the body soften in subtle ways. The nervous system constantly responds to the emotional atmosphere around you, and your heart appears connected to that process more deeply than many people realize. Researchers have found that emotional states can influence heart rhythm patterns. Periods of calmness, appreciation, compassion, and emotional safety are often associated with steadier, more regulated patterns within the body. While chronic stress, fear, emotional tension, and overwhelm may create more chaotic physiological responses, this does not mean people should force positive emotions, but it may suggest that moments of calmness and emotional connection influence the body in real physical ways. Practices like slow breathing, gratitude, compassion, or simply sitting quietly with supportive thoughts may help the nervous system shift toward greater balance over time, because the heart, brain, and nervous system are constantly communicating with one another. And perhaps healing becomes easier when the body receives repeated signals of safety instead of constant alarm. Researchers have also found that meaning and purpose may strongly influence emotional resilience and long-term well-being. People who feel connected to something meaningful often cope more effectively with stress and life difficulties. Purpose does not need to be extraordinary. It can be caring for someone you love, creating something with your hands, helping another person, tending a garden, sharing kindness, continuing forward one day at a time. Sometimes purpose is simply having a reason to keep showing up for life. And perhaps the nervous system responds differently when life still feels meaningful in some small way. The brain also appears capable of continuing to adapt throughout life. Researchers studying neuroplasticity and neurogenesis have found that learning, movement, emotional safety, mental stimulation, and stress reduction may help support the brain's ability to grow and reorganize itself over time, which means the mind may never be completely fixed or finished. New experiences matter. Gentle challenge matter. Curiosity matters. Learning something new, listening to music, trying a different routine, reading unfamiliar ideas, allowing the brain to experience novelty within safety. These experiences may help keep the nervous system flexible and engaged with life. Emotional release matters too. Many people spend years holding tension silently inside the body, trying not to cry, trying not to burden others, trying to remain strong at all times. But emotional suppression may quietly prolong stress within the nervous system. Sometimes tears are not a sign of weakness. Sometimes they are simply the body releasing emotional weight it was never meant to carry forever. And after emotional release, many people notice the body softening naturally, breathing deepening, muscles relaxing, the nervous system shifting slowly away from tension. Perhaps healing does not always begin by becoming stronger. Sometimes it begins by finally allowing yourself to stop holding everything so tightly alone. Sometimes emotional pain stays inside the body longer than people realize. Stress builds quietly, unspoken grief, fear, loneliness, emotional exhaustion, pressure carried silently for too long, and eventually, the nervous system may begin holding that emotional weight physically. Tension in the chest, tightness in the throat, shallow breathing, restlessness at night, difficulty fully relaxing. This is one reason emotional release can sometimes feel unexpectedly calming. After crying, many people notice their breathing soften. Their muscles relax, their thoughts slow down. Not because sadness disappears, but because the body may finally stop resisting what it has been carrying. Tears are not weakness, they may simply be part of the nervous system's natural way of releasing emotional overwhelm. And perhaps this is why emotional suppression can feel so exhausting over time. The body keeps holding what the mind never fully processes. Researchers have also explored something called affect labeling, the practice of putting emotions into words. Studies suggest that simply naming an emotion may help reduce its intensity, saying quietly to yourself, "I'm feeling anxious. I'm overwhelmed. This hurts. I'm grieving. I'm tired." These simple acknowledgments may help create space between you and the emotion itself. Not to deny the feeling, but to observe it more gently instead of becoming completely consumed by it. This may be one reason journaling, therapy, or honest conversations can sometimes feel relieving even before solutions appear. Because the nervous system often calms when emotions are recognized instead of suppressed. Human beings are also deeply affected by the emotional states of people around them. Researchers studying mirror neurons believe the brain naturally reflects and responds to the emotional energy of others, which may help explain why calm people can feel calming, why anxious environments feel exhausting, and why emotional safety in relationships can be deeply healing. The nervous system is constantly learning from the environments and people surrounding it. Hope can spread, calmness can spread, fear can spread too. This is why supportive relationships matter so much during difficult seasons of life. Sometimes healing happens internally, and sometimes it happens through being around people who help your nervous system remember what safety feels like again. And perhaps by now, you're beginning to notice something deeper beneath all these ideas. None of these systems truly exist separately. Thoughts influence the body influences emotion, stress influences sleep, sleep influences emotional resilience, connection influences safety. The mind and body are not enemies struggling against each other. They are constantly communicating through sensations, emotions, hormones, memories, and repeated experiences. And perhaps healing begins with awareness, because awareness creates the possibility of responding differently, more gently, more patiently, more compassionately, toward your body, toward your mind, toward yourself, especially during the moments when you need that kindness most. Awareness may be one of the most important parts of healing, because awareness creates the possibility of choice, the choice to pause, to breathe more slowly, to soften tension instead of fighting it, to notice when the nervous system feels overwhelmed, and perhaps most importantly, the choice to believe that recovery may still be possible, even after difficult seasons of life. Right now, in this quiet moment, your only responsibility is to rest. You do not need to solve tomorrow tonight. You do not need to carry the entire weight of your life into this moment. For now, simply notice your breathing. Notice the space around you. Notice the feeling of your body being supported. The world continues moving outside this room, but this moment belongs only to you. A small pause in the noise, a moment where the nervous system may slowly begin loosening its grip on stress. Researchers continue studying a powerful communication pathway in the body called the vagus nerve. This nerve connects the brain with major systems throughout the body, including the heart, lungs, digestion, and stress regulation systems. And it appears deeply connected to the body's ability to shift between survival and recovery. When the nervous system feels threatened, the body prepares for danger. Heart rate rises, breathing becomes shallow, muscles tighten, stress hormones increase. But signals of safety may gradually create the opposite response. Slow breathing, gentle rhythm, connection, calm environments, soft vocal tones, moments of emotional reassurance. These experiences may help activate calming pathways associated with restoration and recovery. This is one reason simple practices like slow breathing, humming softly, stretching gently, or relaxing before sleep can sometimes feel surprisingly powerful. Not because they erase stress instantly, but because they may help remind the nervous system that danger is not happening right now. Every emotional state also creates physical changes inside the body. Fear affects breathing and muscle tension. Stress affects hormones and digestion. Connection affects oxytocin and emotional regulation. Calmness influences heart rhythm and nervous system balance. The body is always responding to emotional experience in physical ways, which means emotional care may matter more than people often realize. Practices like gratitude, compassion, laughter, emotional support, rest, and calming routines may gradually help create a more restorative internal environment over time. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently, and perhaps this is one reason sleep remains so essential for healing. During sleep, the body performs many of its most important restorative processes. The immune system becomes more active, stress systems slow down, cells repair themselves. The brain processes emotional experiences from the day. Research consistently shows that prolonged sleep deprivation may increase vulnerability to illness, emotional overwhelm, inflammation, and chronic stress. The body needs rest not because it is weak, but because recovery is part of being human. So tonight, you do not need to earn rest. You do not need permission to slow down, and you do not need to heal everything all at once. For now, allow your breathing to soften naturally. Allow your shoulders to unclench. Allow this moment to be enough, and let your nervous system remember, little by little, what safety feels like again. The human body was never designed to function without rest for long periods of time. Sleep is not a luxury, it is one of the body's most essential biological repair systems. During deep sleep, the brain processes emotional experiences. The immune system becomes more active. Stress hormones begin settling. Cells repair damage accumulated throughout the day. And the nervous system finally has a chance to slow down. But modern life often teaches people to ignore exhaustion. to push harder, to stay productive no matter the cost, to treat rest as weakness instead of necessity. Over time, many people become disconnected from the body's natural signals. Fatigue becomes normal, mental overstimulation becomes constant, and sleep becomes something people struggle to force instead of naturally receive. But the body cannot fully restore itself without sufficient rest. There is no shortcut that completely replaces sleep, no constant productivity that eliminates the nervous system's need for recovery. Rest is not laziness, it is part of being human. The beliefs people absorb from culture may also influence how they experience stress, illness, and healing. The stories surrounding emotional struggles matter. If someone grows up believing exhaustion means failure, they may judge themselves harshly during burnout. If emotional pain is treated like weakness, people may hide suffering instead of seeking support. And when individuals see stories of recovery, resilience, or healing, hope may begin feeling more possible. This is one reason supportive communities can matter so deeply. Sometimes healing begins with realizing you are not the only person carrying invisible struggles. And perhaps the nervous system softens when it no longer feels isolated in its pain. Researchers have also explored the idea of interoception, the ability to notice internal sensations within the body, things like tension, fatigue, breathing changes, hunger, emotional heaviness, restlessness. Many people living under chronic stress become disconnected from these signals until the body becomes overwhelmed. But awareness may gradually be strengthened through gentle practices like mindfulness, body scans, or simply pausing long enough to notice what the body is feeling. Not to obsess over symptoms, but to reconnect with yourself more compassionately. Because the body is often communicating long before exhaustion becomes severe, and perhaps healing sometimes begins with finally listening. Researchers also continue studying inflammation and its relationship to stress, sleep, and emotional well-being. Inflammation itself is not always harmful. In the short term, it helps the body protect and repair itself. But prolonged stress, poor sleep, emotional overload, and chronic tension may contribute to inflammatory patterns that place strain on the body over time. Which is why healing often requires more than one form of care. Sleep matters. Stress reduction matters, connection matters, nutrition matters, emotional safety matters. The body responds to all of these experiences together because healing is rarely one single event. More often, it is a gradual process of helping the nervous system feel supported enough to recover little by little. And tonight, perhaps that process can begin simply by allowing yourself to rest. Healing often works through many systems at the same time. The body responds not only to medicine or treatment, but also to sleep, stress levels, nutrition, movement, emotional safety, and daily habits repeated quietly over time. Researchers continue studying how certain foods may influence inflammation, mood, and overall well-being. Nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, fiber-rich foods, antioxidants, and balanced nutrition appear to support healthier regulation within the body for many people. But emotional stress matters too. Chronic tension, unresolved anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and persistent overwhelm may also affect inflammatory processes inside the body, which means healing may require supporting both the mind and the body together. Not perfectly, not obsessively, but consistently and compassionately. The body is always adapting to the conditions it experiences repeatedly. Movement plays an important role in that process. Bones strengthen when gently challenged. Muscles adapt through use. The cardiovascular system responds to activity levels over time. And the nervous system also learns from movement. This is why gentle, appropriate physical activity can sometimes support recovery instead of worsening it. Not because people should push through pain aggressively, but because the body often responds positively to signals that suggest life, movement, and recovery are still possible. Sometimes even small movements matter. A slow walk, gentle stretching, standing outside in fresh air. Moving carefully after periods of stress or exhaustion. These moments may quietly communicate safety and resilience back to the nervous system. Researchers also continue studying the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain involved in planning, emotional regulation, decision-making, and long-term thinking. Chronic stress and emotional overwhelm may affect how effectively this region functions over time, which may help explain why exhaustion often makes healthy habits feel harder to maintain. The brain becomes tired too. But the hopeful part is this: the brain remains adaptable. Practices like mindfulness, therapy, emotional support, stress reduction, and healthy routines may help strengthen emotional regulation gradually over time. Not overnight, but through repetition, through support, through patience. And perhaps this matters because healing is rarely about becoming perfect. More often, it is about slowly rebuilding stability inside the nervous system. Acts of kindness may influence this process as well. Researchers have found that helping others, expressing care, or participating in meaningful social connection may positively affect emotional well-being and stress regulation. Kindness often benefits both the person receiving it and the person offering it. Because human beings appear deeply wired for connection, care, and cooperation. Sometimes small acts of compassion create moments where the nervous system briefly stops defending itself. A kind conversation. Helping someone who is struggling. Feeling appreciated. Feeling useful. Feeling connected to something beyond stress and survival. These moments may seem simple, but emotionally, they can become reminders that life still contains warmth, meaning, and safety. And perhaps healing grows more easily in environments where the nervous system no longer feels completely alone. Sometimes recovery begins slowly, one healthier choice, one deeper breath, one kind moment, one restful night at a time. Kindness may affect the nervous system more deeply than many people realize. Researchers studying human connection have found that acts of care, generosity, and emotional support may positively influence stress regulation, emotional resilience, and overall well-being. And interestingly, these effects often appear strongest when kindness is genuine and rooted in real human connection. A warm conversation, a sincere compliment, helping someone who feels overwhelmed, listening without judgment. Even small moments of care may influence the emotional chemistry of both people involved. Because human beings are deeply wired for connection, and sometimes helping others briefly shifts the mind away from cycles of fear, stress, and self-focused rumination. Kindness may not erase suffering, but it may soften the nervous system enough to remind the body that safety and connection still exist. Our early life experiences also shape how the nervous system responds to the world. People who grow up in environments filled with emotional safety, consistency, and support often develop a stronger sense of trust and security within relationships. While chronic stress, emotional neglect, unpredictability, or trauma may teach the nervous system to remain constantly alert, hypervigilance, difficulty relaxing, fear of vulnerability, trouble feeling emotionally safe. These patterns are often adaptive responses to past experiences, not personal failures. And perhaps this is important to remember. The nervous system learned these responses in order to survive. But what the brain learns, it may also slowly relearn over time. Researchers studying attachment, trauma, and emotional regulation continue finding that supportive relationships, therapy, emotional safety, and consistent care may gradually help the nervous system shift toward greater stability. Not instantly, not perfectly, but slowly, through repeated experiences of safety, and perhaps healing sometimes begins when the body finally experiences the kind of calm it never fully learned earlier in life. Researchers are also exploring growing connections between inflammation and emotional health. Chronic stress, poor sleep, emotional overwhelm, and unhealthy lifestyle patterns may influence inflammatory activity inside the body and brain, which means emotional struggles are not always just in someone's head. The body and brain constantly affect one another. Sleep affects inflammation. Stress affects immunity. Emotional pain affects the nervous system. And physical exhaustion may influence mood and emotional resilience in return. The line between physical and emotional health is often far less separate than people once believed. This may be one reason deep sleep remains so important for mental clarity and long-term well-being. During deep sleep, the brain activates important restorative systems that help clear metabolic waste accumulated throughout the day. Researchers continue studying how this nighttime process may support cognitive function, emotional regulation, and overall brain health. Without sufficient sleep over long periods, the nervous system may struggle to fully recover from the demands of daily stress. which means sleep is not passive inactivity. It is active restoration, a time when the brain and body continue repairing, regulating, and restoring balance quietly in the background. So tonight, perhaps your only task is to allow yourself to rest long enough for those healing systems to do what they were designed to do. Little by little, breath by breath, night after night. Your body is constantly responding to the environment you live in, not only physically, but emotionally, neurologically, and even biologically at deeper levels than most people realize. Researchers studying epigenetics continue exploring how lifestyle, stress, sleep, movement, nutrition, and emotional experiences may influence the way certain genes are expressed over time. This does not mean thoughts magically control biology, but it does suggest something hopeful. The conditions surrounding your life may influence how your body adapts and responds over time. Chronic stress may affect the nervous system differently than calmness. Rest may affect the body differently than exhaustion. Sleep may support restoration in ways constant overstimulation cannot, and perhaps this reminds us that healing is rarely one single action. It is often the accumulation of many small conditions repeated consistently. The nervous system also appears deeply affected by connection and isolation. Researchers have found that chronic loneliness may influence stress hormones, inflammation, immune function, and emotional health over time. But interestingly, the quality of connection often matters more than the number of people around you. One emotionally safe relationship may calm the nervous system more deeply than many surface-level interactions. Feeling understood, feeling accepted, feeling emotionally safe enough to exhale. These experiences may affect the body more powerfully than people realize, because human beings were never designed to heal entirely alone. The mind also contains layers of awareness that exist beneath constant mental chatter. Many people spend so much time thinking, worrying, planning, and overstimulating themselves that they rarely experience true stillness. But beneath all the noise, there is often another layer of awareness quietly observing everything. Meditation, deep rest, prayer, silence, mindful breathing, or simply sitting quietly without constant stimulation may help people reconnect with this calmer internal space. Not because silence magically solves suffering, but because healing often becomes easier when the nervous system is no longer overwhelmed by non-stop stimulation. Sometimes clarity emerges in stillness. Sometimes emotional release happens there too. And sometimes the body simply needs quiet long enough to remember what calm feels like again. Researchers have also explored something called post-traumatic growth. Some people who move through profound hardship eventually describe unexpected emotional change afterward. A deeper appreciation for life, stronger relationships, greater empathy, clearer priorities, a different understanding of what truly matters. This does not mean trauma is good, and it does not erase suffering. But it does suggest that painful experiences do not always define the rest of a person's life forever. Human beings remain capable of adaptation, of healing, of rebuilding meaning even after difficult experiences, and perhaps this is one of the most hopeful truths about the nervous system. It can learn safety again. It can learn rest again. It can learn connection again, little by little, moment by moment, breath by breath. And tonight, perhaps that journey begins simply by allowing yourself to soften here for a while. Difficult experiences can change people in painful ways, but sometimes, with support, safety, meaning, and time, people also discover unexpected strength within themselves afterward. Researchers studying post-traumatic growth have found that some individuals eventually report deeper appreciation for life, stronger emotional awareness, clearer priorities, or more meaningful relationships after surviving hardship. This does not mean suffering is good, and it does not erase grief, fear, or emotional pain. But it may remind us that human beings remain capable of adaptation even after overwhelming experiences. Sometimes healing is not about becoming who you were before. Sometimes it is about becoming someone more compassionate, more grounded, more aware of what truly matters. The nervous system carries pain, but it also carries the capacity to learn, rebuild, and reconnect with life again. Your body also follows natural rhythms that quietly influence mood, energy, hormones, focus, and sleep throughout the day. Cortisol naturally rises in the morning to support wakefulness. Melatonin gradually increases in darkness to prepare the body for sleep. The brain and nervous system evolved around cycles of light and darkness. But modern life often interrupts these ancient rhythms. Late-night screen exposure, irregular sleep schedules, artificial light at midnight, mental stimulation late into the evening. Over time, these patterns may confuse the body's internal clock and make deep rest more difficult, which is why gentle consistency can matter so much. Morning sunlight, calmer evenings, regular sleep and wake times, allowing darkness to signal safety and rest again. The body often responds well to rhythm, not perfection, just rhythm. Researchers have also explored how body awareness practices may support emotional regulation and nervous system balance. Practices like yoga, tai chi, stretching, mindful walking, and slow, intentional movement may help people reconnect with physical sensations in a calmer and safer way. This matters because chronic stress and trauma can sometimes create disconnection from the body. People stop noticing tension, breathing, fatigue, emotion. The body becomes something they endure instead of inhabit, but gentle awareness practices may slowly help rebuild trust between the mind and body again. Not through force, but through patience and safety. The body also carries remarkable systems for maintenance and repair at the cellular level. Researchers continue studying processes connected to rest, movement, fasting, and sleep that help the body clear damaged cellular material and support ongoing repair. Your body is constantly evaluating what to restore, what to recycle, and how to maintain balance, even now, while you rest quietly. Countless processes continue working silently in the background to support life. And perhaps curiosity matters in healing too. Not fearful obsession, but gentle curiosity. Curiosity about what your body may be needing. Curiosity about your emotions, curiosity about your stress patterns, curiosity about what helps you feel calmer, safer, or more grounded. Because curiosity shifts the nervous system out of helplessness and into awareness. Instead of fighting yourself constantly, you begin listening. And sometimes healing begins there. Not in perfection, not in force, but in slowly learning how to work with your body instead of against it. And tonight, perhaps rest itself can become part of that conversation. Sometimes healing begins with curiosity instead of fear, not obsessive worrying, not constantly searching for what is wrong, but gentle curiosity. Curiosity about what your body is feeling. Curiosity about what helps you feel calmer. Curiosity about your emotional patterns, your stress responses, your energy, your sleep. Because curiosity creates space. And space may help the nervous system move out of panic and into awareness. Instead of drowning inside difficult emotions, you begin observing them more gently. You begin listening instead of fighting. And perhaps this changes the relationship you have with yourself over time. Researchers also recognize that human nervous systems are naturally different from one another. Some people are highly sensitive to stimulation. Some thrive on novelty and activity. Others feel safest with routine, quiet, and predictability. Some minds process emotion deeply. Others naturally analyze and organize. There is no single correct nervous system, and perhaps healing sometimes begins when people stop forcing themselves to function like everyone else. A highly sensitive person may not heal through constant overstimulation. Someone with chronic stress may not recover through relentless pressure. The nervous system often responds best when life begins aligning more closely with its actual needs. Not society's expectations, not constant productivity, not comparison, but reality. And perhaps you are not failing because your nervous system is weak. Perhaps your body has simply been trying to survive environments that never truly felt safe for you. The body also depends on tiny systems working quietly beneath awareness every moment of the day. Inside your cells are structures called mitochondria, responsible for producing much of the energy your body uses to function. Sleep, stress levels, movement, nutrition, and recovery habits may all influence how effectively these systems operate over time. Which means exhaustion is not always laziness or lack of discipline. Sometimes the body is simply depleted. Sometimes the nervous system has been carrying too much for too long. And perhaps healing requires understanding that energy is biological, emotional, and psychological all at once. Researchers also describe something called allostatic load, the accumulated wear and tear chronic stress places on the body over time. Stress that is never fully released, pressure carried for years, constant vigilance, emotional exhaustion, poor sleep, isolation. The nervous system keeps adapting to survive all of it. But eventually, the body may begin signaling that the load has become too heavy, which is why healing often requires more than simply removing stress. The nervous system also needs restoration, rest, connection, safety, joy, meaning, moments where the body no longer feels trapped in constant survival. Researchers have also explored something called flow states, moments of deep absorption where attention becomes fully engaged in meaningful activity. Time feels different there. Mental noise quiets, self-consciousness softens for some people. This happens while creating art, gardening, writing, playing music, cooking, walking in nature, building something with their hands. The nervous system often feels calmer when fully present inside something meaningful and manageable. Perhaps this is because healing is not only about reducing suffering, it is also about reconnecting with experiences that make life feel alive again. And tonight, maybe your only task is to rest long enough to remember that those moments are still possible. Flow states may offer the nervous system something deeply restorative. Moments where attention becomes so fully absorbed in a meaningful activity that mental noise begins to fade. Time softens. Overthinking quiets. Self-consciousness loosens its grip. For some people, this happens through music. For others, painting, gardening, cooking, writing, walking, or creating something slowly with their hands. These experiences may help the mind step out of cycles of rumination and anxiety for a while. And perhaps this is why they can feel so healing. Not because suffering disappears completely, but because the nervous system briefly remembers what presence feels like, what calm engagement feels like, what life feels like when the mind is no longer fighting itself every moment. Healing is rarely about forcing yourself into someone else's definition of health. More often, it is about learning to listen carefully to your own body and nervous system. Some people heal through movement, others through stillness, some through connection, others through solitude. There is no single perfect path. The common thread is awareness, noticing what leaves you feeling calmer, noticing what drains you, noticing what creates tension, and what creates relief, and gradually learning how to build a life that supports your nervous system instead of constantly overwhelming it. Because your body carries wisdom too, even after stress, even after exhaustion, even after sleepless nights. And perhaps part of healing is learning how to trust those quiet signals again. You may be feeling sleepy now. That's okay. There is nothing you need to force, nothing you need to solve tonight. Simply notice your breathing. Inhale slowly, exhale gently, inhale, exhale, a quiet rhythm moving through you continuously. Your heart still beating faithfully, your body still working silently to restore balance. Cells renewing themselves. Systems repairing quietly beneath awareness. Life continuing inside you even during moments of exhaustion. You do not need to hold everything together perfectly. The body already knows how to move through cycles of rest and renewal, like the tides, like the changing seasons, like night slowly becoming morning again. Pain, too, may sometimes be understood differently when approached with gentleness instead of fear. Pain is not always an enemy. Sometimes it is information, a signal asking for attention, rest, protection, or care, and the fear surrounding pain creates even more suffering inside the nervous system. Mindfulness-based approaches to pain management encourage something different, not resistance, not suppression, but gentle observation, breathing through discomfort, noticing sensation without immediately panicking, allowing space around the experience instead of fighting it constantly. And sometimes, when fear softens, the suffering surrounding pain softens too. Not because the sensation disappears instantly, but because the nervous system no longer feels trapped in battle against itself. Researchers also continue exploring how stress and trauma may become stored physically within the body through tension patterns, muscle guarding, breathing changes, and chronic nervous system activation. This may help explain why gentle movement, stretching, somatic practices, breathwork, and body awareness exercises can sometimes feel emotionally releasing as well as physically calming. The body remembers stress, but perhaps it also remembers safety, and with enough patience. Care. Full English script. Sometimes the body expresses what words cannot fully explain. After prolonged stress or trauma, the nervous system may remain stuck in patterns of tension, vigilance, or emotional holding. And occasionally, when safety is finally present, the body begins releasing some of that stored activation naturally. Through tears, shaking, deep breaths, muscle release, unexpected emotion. These responses are not always signs that something is wrong. Sometimes they may reflect the nervous system finally feeling safe enough to stop holding everything so tightly. Healing is not always intellectual. Sometimes it happens through sensation, through breath, through movement, through allowing the body to complete stress responses that were interrupted long ago. Researchers also explore something called hormesis, the idea that small, manageable challenges may help strengthen resilience over time. Movement gently challenges muscles, which then adapt. Brief periods of discomfort may sometimes help the nervous system become more flexible and capable. But the key is balance. Too little challenge may leave the system stagnant. Too much overwhelm may exhaust it further. Healing often depends on finding the right level of challenge for your current capacity. Not forcing yourself beyond your limits. Not avoiding all discomfort completely, but learning how to move through life with gentleness and adaptability. Grief follows a similar rhythm. Grief is not weakness, it is evidence of love, attachment, and connection. And perhaps this is why grief cannot simply be rushed away. The nervous system often needs time to slowly process loss, to revisit memories, to feel sadness in waves, to gradually reshape life around what has changed. Suppressing grief does not always make it disappear. Sometimes the body continues carrying it quietly through tension, exhaustion, numbness, or emotional heaviness. But allowing grief space may help the nervous system soften around the pain little by little. Not forgetting, not erasing, but learning how to carry love and loss together. Human beings also evolved in close relationship with nature. For most of history, the nervous system lived among trees, water, open skies, sunlight, and natural rhythms. Modern environments filled with constant noise, artificial light, screens, and overstimulation may quietly strain the nervous system over time, which may help explain why natural environments often feel calming so quickly. Even small moments matter. A plant near a window, the sound of rain, fresh air moving through a room, morning sunlight across the floor, bird song in the distance. These experiences may gently remind the nervous system of safety, rhythm, and stillness. Researchers also continue studying states of physiological coherence, moments when breathing, heart rhythms, and nervous system patterns become more synchronized and regulated. Slow breathing, feelings of appreciation, calm focus, emotional warmth. These states may help the body shift away from chronic stress and toward greater balance. And perhaps this is why healing often feels less like fighting yourself and more like helping the different parts of you move together again. Mind, body, breath, emotion, all returning slowly toward rhythm, toward softness, toward rest. Full English script. Healing may depend on harmony more than force. The body is not made of isolated systems working alone. Every part communicates continuously with every other part. Researchers have discovered that cells constantly exchange information through tiny biological messengers, coordinating repair, immune responses, inflammation, and recovery throughout the body. When one area struggles, other systems often respond, supporting, adjusting, compensating. The body appears to heal collaboratively rather than separately. And perhaps this reflects something deeper about healing itself. Recovery may happen more easily when different parts of your life begin working together instead of against each other. Sleep, breathing, stress levels, movement, connection, emotion, environment. The nervous system often functions best when these systems move in greater balance and rhythm. Researchers have also explored practices like intentional laughter and group laughter exercises. Interestingly, the body may respond to intentional laughter in surprisingly similar ways to spontaneous laughter. Breathing changes. Muscles relax. Stress hormones may decrease. Endorphins may increase. And sometimes, even small moments of lightness can interrupt cycles of anxiety and emotional heaviness. This may remind us that healing does not always begin after everything feels better. Sometimes action comes first. A walk before motivation appears. A deep breath before calmness arrives. A small smile before the nervous system fully softens. The body often responds to what we practice repeatedly. Researchers also continue studying how chronic stress may influence aging processes inside the body over time. Sleep quality, stress management, movement, social connection, rest, all appear connected to long-term biological resilience in different ways, which means your daily habits may matter more gently and gradually than people realize. Not through perfection, but through consistency. The nervous system responds to repeated experiences. Repeated rest, repeated overwhelm, repeated calm, repeated stress. Little by little, the body adapts to the conditions it lives within. Researchers studying perception also remind us that the brain constantly interprets reality through layers of sensation, memory, emotion, and meaning. This does not mean experiences are imaginary. Pain is real, emotion is real, stress is real, but perception may still be flexible. And perhaps this is hopeful, because if the nervous system can learn fear, it may also learn safety. If the mind can learn tension, it may also learn calmness, and if stress patterns can be reinforced over time, perhaps healing patterns can be strengthened gradually too. Not instantly, not perfectly, but gently, moment by moment, breath by breath, night after night, and maybe tonight. Your nervous system can begin remembering that softer rhythm again. Full English script. Many people spend years believing their pain, stress, anxiety, or exhaustion completely defines who they are. But healing may begin when your relationship to those experiences starts to change. The symptoms may still exist. The difficult days may still come. But gradually, they stop becoming your entire identity. You are no longer only the exhausted person, only the anxious person, only the wounded person. The struggle becomes part of your experience, not the entirety of who you are. And perhaps this shift matters deeply to the nervous system. Because suffering often grows heavier when it feels permanent, inescapable, and all-consuming. But when awareness expands, space appears around the pain. Space for breath, space for rest, space for meaning, space for moments that still feel peaceful, beautiful, or alive. Breathing itself may influence this process more than most people realize. Rapid, shallow breathing often signals danger to the nervous system. The body tightens, stress hormones rise, alertness increases, but slower breathing patterns may gradually communicate something different. Safety, slowness, stability, and over time, the nervous system may begin responding differently to those signals. Every breath slightly changes the chemistry of the body. Every exhale may soften tension just a little more. Perhaps this is why conscious breathing practices can feel so grounding during stress or anxiety. Not because breathing magically removes problems, but because it may help the body shift out of survival mode long enough to rest. Researchers also continue studying resilience, not as the absence of pain, but as the capacity to recover, adapt, and continue moving forward after hardship. Some people experience profound suffering and remain emotionally overwhelmed for years. Others gradually rebuild, not because they were born stronger, but often because support, safety, connection, meaning, and healing resources became available afterward. Resilience appears to grow through repeated experiences of support and recovery, through therapy, through relationships, through rest, through learning that difficult emotions can be survived safely, and perhaps resilience is not something you either have or don't have. Perhaps it is something the nervous system practices slowly over time. Researchers have also explored self-compassion practices, including exercises where people intentionally speak to themselves with greater gentleness and understanding. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Many people are far more practiced at self-criticism than self-kindness. But over time, the nervous system may gradually respond differently when inner dialogue becomes softer instead of harsher. Not perfect, not forced positivity, just less cruelty toward yourself. Because the person you speak to most in life is you. And perhaps healing changes when that voice becomes more compassionate instead of constantly threatening or condemning. So maybe healing does begin in the mind, not because the mind controls everything, but because awareness changes relationship, and relationship changes experience. Every moment you chose to rest instead of punish yourself, every breath that softened your nervous system, every small act of self-care, every moment you allowed hope to remain possible. Perhaps healing was already quietly beginning there. Full English script. Healing may not be something waiting for you only in the future, not someday when every symptom disappears. Not only after life becomes perfect again. Perhaps healing is already happening quietly in the choices you make each day. The choice to rest when your body asks for rest. The choice to breathe slowly during stress. The choice to speak to yourself with less harshness. The choice to believe that recovery might still be possible. Healing may live inside the process itself, inside the living, inside the small moments where your nervous system experiences even brief glimpses of safety, calmness, or hope. And perhaps your worth has never depended on how productive, energetic, successful, or healthy you appear to others. Human beings often learn to measure value through achievement, through performance, through how much they can endure without slowing down. But your nervous system does not need to earn the right to rest, and your value does not disappear during difficult seasons of life. You are still worthy on exhausted days, still worthy during grief, still worthy while healing slowly, still worthy even when your body feels overwhelmed, because worth is not something the nervous system must constantly prove. It already exists within you. Researchers and philosophers alike have long recognized that imperfection is part of being human. Scars, fatigue, grief, fear, sensitivity. None of these experiences make you less complete. Sometimes hardship adds depth, empathy, and gentleness that could not have existed otherwise. Not because suffering is desirable, but because human beings often become more compassionate through what they survive. The goal of healing is not becoming flawless. It may be learning how to live more peacefully inside your humanity, even with limitations, even with uncertainty, even with unfinished healing. Loss also changes people in ways that create unexpected space for growth. When life changes suddenly, through illness, heartbreak, burnout, or emotional exhaustion, it can feel as though something inside has collapsed. But empty space is not always meaningless. Sometimes it becomes room for something new, new priorities, new understanding, new relationships, new ways of caring for yourself. Healing may not always return you to who you were before. Sometimes it gently introduces you to someone different, someone softer, more aware, more present, more connected to what truly matters. And beneath all the stress, fear, exhaustion, and overthinking, there may still be a quieter part of you untouched by all of it. A deeper awareness that has remained present through every difficult season. Watching, breathing, enduring, waiting patiently for moments of calmness to return. Perhaps healing is not about becoming someone entirely new. Perhaps it is about remembering the parts of yourself that stress caused you to forget. Life also moves in cycles. Cells renew themselves. Seasons change. Night becomes morning. Endings create space for beginnings. And sometimes the nervous system must let old patterns soften before new ways of living can emerge. This process can feel uncomfortable, uncertain, slow, but not all dissolving is destruction. Sometimes it is transition. Sometimes things fall apart quietly so something gentler can eventually take shape. And tonight, you do not need to force that transformation. You only need to rest long enough for your body to remember that healing is still possible. Transformation is rarely comfortable. Growth often asks the nervous system to move through uncertainty before stability returns. And during difficult seasons, many people ask themselves, why is this happening to me? But over time, another question may become more healing. What now? What now that life has changed? What now that exhaustion has become impossible to ignore? What now that the nervous system can no longer survive on pressure alone? Because while human beings cannot always choose what happens to them, they may still choose how they respond to what happens next. And those small responses repeated daily gradually shape a life. The choice to seek support, the choice to rest, the choice to soften self-criticism, the choice to keep going gently instead of giving up completely. Healing stories are rarely defined only by suffering itself. Often they are shaped by the meaning people create afterward, by the care they learn to offer themselves, by the relationships they build, by the wisdom that slowly emerges through surviving difficult experiences. Science continues teaching us remarkable things about the body and brain, how neurons communicate, how hormones shift emotional states, how sleep affects healing, how stress changes the nervous system. And yet, there is still mystery inside human experience. There is still something deeply personal and difficult to fully explain about consciousness, emotion, love, grief, hope, and resilience. Human beings are more than biology alone, more than symptoms, more than productivity, more than stress responses and chemical reactions. There is also awareness, presence, meaning, connection, and perhaps healing touches all of those layers together. Even breathing quietly connects you to something larger than yourself. Every breath exchanges air with the living world around you. Trees, oceans, other people, life continuously moving through life, which may be a gentle reminder that human beings were never truly meant to exist in complete isolation. And perhaps one of the deepest shifts in healing happens when people stop seeing themselves as broken. Struggling, yes. Exhausted, perhaps. Hurting, certainly, but not broken, because broken suggests something without value, something ruined beyond repair. But the nervous system is not an object that failed. It is a living system constantly adapting, protecting, learning, and trying to survive. Even when those survival patterns become exhausting. Healing may not be about fixing yourself into perfection. It may be about learning how to honor your humanity more gently. Mind and body are not separate enemies fighting against each other. They are in constant conversation. Thoughts affecting physiology, sleep affecting emotion, stress affecting the body affecting the mind in return. And perhaps healing happens inside that ongoing relationship, inside the small daily moments where awareness begins replacing punishment, where rest replaces constant survival, where compassion softens fear, where the nervous system slowly remembers that safety may still be possible. And tonight, perhaps that is enough. Not perfection, not complete transformation overnight, just this moment, this breath, this small beginning of returning gently back to yourself. Full English script. Healing is not a finish line waiting somewhere far in the future. It is a direction, a quiet turning toward rest, toward awareness, toward compassion, toward whatever light still exists, even during difficult seasons of life. And perhaps healing is already happening now, in this moment, as you breathe. As your nervous system slowly softens, as your body listens to calmness instead of constant urgency. As you allow yourself even briefly to stop fighting everything all at once. Tonight we've traveled through many layers of healing together. From the brain's ability to adapt, to the body's need for rest, to the ways stress, sleep, emotion, breath, connection, and awareness all influence one another continuously, again and again. The same truth quietly returns. Mind and body are not separate. They speak constantly through chemistry, sensation, emotion, rhythm, and attention. The nervous system listens to how you live, how you breathe, how you rest, how you speak to yourself, how safe or unsafe the world feels around you. And perhaps healing begins when those signals slowly become softer, gentler, more supportive. Human beings are not machines waiting to be repaired perfectly. We are living systems constantly adapting to our environments, relationships, stress, habits, thoughts, and experiences. And much of the deepest healing happens quietly beneath awareness. During sleep, during stillness, during moments where the nervous system no longer feels trapped in survival mode. Sometimes simply pausing long enough to notice your breath, your body, your exhaustion, your emotions is already part of healing. Because awareness creates possibility, and possibility creates change. Take one slow breath now, as deeply as feels comfortable, and notice that life is still moving gently within you, your heart still beating, your lungs still breathing, your body still trying even after difficult days. You are part of something larger than your stress, larger than your fear, larger than your exhaustion, and perhaps one of the most healing realizations is this. You were never meant to carry everything alone, not emotionally, not physically, not spiritually. Human beings are deeply connected to one another, to nature, to rhythm, to cycles of rest and renewal. And even when the mind feels isolated, life continues holding you quietly in ways you may not always notice. Perhaps you are not broken, perhaps you are tired, overwhelmed, overstimulated, hurting, but still deeply human, still worthy of care, still capable of healing. Mind and body are already in conversation every moment of your life. Thoughts affecting physiology, sleep affecting emotion, breathing affecting stress, connection affecting resilience, and healing may simply be the gradual process of helping those conversations become calmer and kinder over time. So tonight, there is nothing more you need to solve, nothing more you need to prove. You can let these thoughts drift gently into the background now, like soft waves receding into the distance. Let your breathing slow naturally. Let your muscles soften. Let the weight of the bed hold you completely. And if sleep come, allow it to carry you gently, quietly, effortlessly toward the deep rest your body has been asking for all along. Full English script tomorrow. Your body will continue doing what it has always done quietly in the background, repairing, restoring, balancing, healing itself in countless invisible ways. Your nervous system will continue adapting. Your mind will continue searching for safety, calmness, and meaning. And your body will continue responding to every moment of care, rest, breath, and gentleness you offer it. But tonight is not for solving everything. Tonight belongs to stillness, to softness, to rest. You do not need to become someone else before you deserve peace. You do not need to heal perfectly before you are worthy of compassion. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is this: you were never truly broken, hurting, yes, exhausted perhaps, overwhelmed at times, but never without worth, never beyond healing, never unworthy of care. Even during pain, there was still something whole within you, quietly continuing to endure, still breathing, still hoping, still trying. And maybe healing is not about removing every scar. Maybe it is learning how to hold yourself more gently through the human experience itself. Tonight, let that be enough. Let your thoughts slow down now. Let your body grow heavier. Let your breathing become softer and quieter with every passing moment. Allow yourself to drift naturally toward sleep without pressure, without effort, without needing to force anything at all. And if tomorrow feels difficult again, you can return here, to stillness, to breath, to rest, to the quiet reminder that healing does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, patiently, moment by moment, night after night. So rest now, healing soul. You have carried enough for today, and your body already knows how to continue the journey from here. Good night. Transformation is rarely comfortable. Growth often asks the nervous system to move through uncertainty before stability returns. And during difficult seasons, many people ask themselves, why is this happening to me? But over time, another question may become more healing. What now? What now that life has changed? What now that exhaustion has become impossible to ignore? What now that the nervous system can no longer survive on pressure alone? Because while human beings cannot always choose what happens to them, they may still choose how they respond to what happens next. And those small responses repeated daily gradually shape a life. The choice to seek support, the choice to rest, the choice to soften self-criticism, the choice to keep going gently instead of giving up completely. Healing stories are rarely defined only by suffering itself. Often they are shaped by the meaning people create afterward, by the care they learn to offer themselves, by the relationships they build, by the wisdom that slowly emerges through surviving difficult experiences. Science continues teaching us remarkable things about the body and brain. How neurons communicate, how hormones shift emotional states, how sleep affects healing, how stress changes the nervous system. And yet, there is still mystery inside human experience. There is still something deeply personal and difficult to fully explain about consciousness, emotion, love, grief, hope, and resilience. Human beings are more than biology alone, more than symptoms, more than productivity, more than stress responses and chemical reactions. There is also awareness, presence, meaning, connection, and perhaps healing touches all of those layers together. Even breathing quietly connects you to something larger than yourself. Every breath exchanges air with the living world around you. Trees, oceans, other people, life continuously moving through life, which may be a gentle reminder that human beings were never truly meant to exist in complete isolation. And perhaps one of the deepest shifts in healing happens when people stop seeing themselves as broken. Struggling, yes. Exhausted, perhaps. Hurting, certainly, but not broken, because broken suggests something without value, something ruined beyond repair. But the nervous system is not an object that failed. It is a living system constantly adapting, protecting, learning, and trying to survive. Even when those survival patterns become exhausting. Healing may not be about fixing yourself into perfection. It may be about learning how to honor your humanity more gently. Mind and body are not separate enemies fighting against each other. They are in constant conversation. Thoughts affecting physiology, sleep affecting emotion, stress affecting the body affecting the mind in return. And perhaps healing happens inside that ongoing relationship. Inside the small daily moments where awareness begins replacing punishment. Where rest replaces constant survival. Where compassion softens fear. Where the nervous system slowly remembers that safety may still be possible. And tonight, perhaps that is enough. Not perfection, not complete transformation overnight, just this moment, this breath, this small beginning of returning gently back to yourself. Full English script. Healing is not a finish line waiting somewhere far in the future. It is a direction, a quiet turning toward rest, toward awareness, toward compassion, toward whatever light still exists, even during difficult seasons of life. And perhaps healing is already happening now, in this moment, as you breathe. As your nervous system slowly softens, as your body listens to calmness instead of constant urgency. As you allow yourself even briefly to stop fighting everything all at once. Tonight we've traveled through many layers of healing together. From the brain's ability to adapt, to the body's need for rest, to the ways stress, sleep, emotion, breath, connection, and awareness all influence one another continuously, again and again. The same truth quietly returns. Mind and body are not separate. They speak constantly through chemistry, sensation, emotion, rhythm, and attention. The nervous system listens to how you live, how you breathe, how you rest, how you speak to yourself, how safe or unsafe the world feels around you. And perhaps healing begins when those signals slowly become softer, gentler, more supportive. Human beings are not machines waiting to be repaired perfectly. We are living systems constantly adapting to our environments, relationships, stress, habits, thoughts, and experiences. And much of the deepest healing happens quietly beneath awareness. During sleep, during stillness, during moments where the nervous system no longer feels trapped in survival mode. Sometimes simply pausing long enough to notice your breath, your body, your exhaustion, your emotions is already part of healing. Because awareness creates possibility, and possibility creates change. Take one slow breath now, as deeply as feels comfortable, and notice that life is still moving gently within you, your heart still beating, your lungs still breathing, your body still trying even after difficult days. You are part of something larger than your stress, larger than your fear, larger than your exhaustion, and perhaps one of the most healing realizations is this. You were never meant to carry everything alone, not emotionally, not physically, not spiritually. Human beings are deeply connected to one another, to nature, to rhythm, to cycles of rest and renewal. And even when the mind feels isolated, life continues holding you quietly in ways you may not always notice. Perhaps you are not broken, perhaps you are tired, overwhelmed, overstimulated, hurting, but still deeply human, still worthy of care, still capable of healing. Mind and body are already in conversation every moment of your life. Thoughts affecting physiology, sleep affecting emotion, breathing affecting stress, connection affecting resilience, and healing may simply be the gradual process of helping those conversations become calmer and kinder over time. So tonight, there is nothing more you need to solve, nothing more you need to prove. You can let these thoughts drift gently into the background now, like soft waves receding into the distance. Let your breathing slow naturally. Let your muscles soften. Let the weight of the bed hold you completely. And if sleep come, allow it to carry you gently, quietly, effortlessly toward the deep rest your body has been asking for all along. Full English script tomorrow. Your body will continue doing what it has always done quietly in the background, repairing, restoring, balancing, healing itself in countless invisible ways. Your nervous system will continue adapting. Your mind will continue searching for safety, calmness, and meaning. And your body will continue responding to every moment of care, rest, breath, and gentleness you offer it. But tonight is not for solving everything. Tonight belongs to stillness, to softness, to rest. You do not need to become someone else before you deserve peace. You do not need to heal perfectly before you are worthy of compassion. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is this: you were never truly broken, hurting, yes, exhausted perhaps, overwhelmed at times, but never without worth, never beyond healing, never unworthy of care. Even during pain, there was still something whole within you, quietly continuing to endure, still breathing, still hoping, still trying. And maybe healing is not about removing every scar. Maybe it is learning how to hold yourself more gently through the human experience itself. Tonight, let that be enough. Let your thoughts slow down now. Let your body grow heavier. Let your breathing become softer and quieter with every passing moment. Allow yourself to drift naturally toward sleep without pressure, without effort, without needing to force anything at all. And if tomorrow feels difficult again, you can return here, to stillness, to breath, to rest, to the quiet reminder that healing does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, patiently, moment by moment, night after night, So rest now, healing soul. You have carried enough for today, and your body already knows how to continue the journey from here. Good night.